foster friends and family. I'm Charles, and you're listening to the Fosterdaddirective podcast, where we will explore the foster care system and my experience with it. In this episode, we'll be talking about becoming a foster parent and the licensing requirements and everything that go with it. Please know that I'm not a trained professional. The views expressed on this podcast are those of the host, and in the future, other hosts or guests, and do not constitute professional advice unless otherwise stated by said guest. Please ensure you seek adequate and effective legal counsel to best protect yourself in this ever-changing system, especially outside of the state of Michigan. Currently, I don't have any updates on our foster kids that we have. We do currently have the 14-year-old and the baby still. I don't currently have any updates for the kid either, who's with his family in another state. I do know that he will technically go up for adoption, but with his age, it's likely that he will be living with that family due to the main goal being either reunification or going to live with biological family for the most part, unless that is not feasible or things change. So for the requirements of becoming a foster parent, there is a pretty big list, but it honestly isn't what you would really think. For Michigan, you have to be 18 or older, which is kind of surprising to me, as I would have figured it would have been older than 18, just because I don't know if at 18 I would have been capable of taking care of a child, but I guess that does also account for if you turn 18 and you're trying to take care of a sibling. So that kind of makes sense as to why they put the requirement at 18 or older. You can be single, married, divorced. You can have biological kids of your own, adopted kids. You have to express a willingness to provide care for children who are served by the agency, demonstrate an understanding of the care that must be provided for the children, and express a willingness to learn how to provide that care. There's a lot of training that goes along. You'll also be working with government agencies. Like I work with Early On for the baby. I've learned a lot of things to help him advance and grow and catch back up to where he should have been. You have to have a defined source of income and are capable of managing that income to meet the needs of the foster family. This means you can't be unemployed without an income. Essentially, it's to protect the child from you using them as a source of income to not have to work, which I've heard horror stories, and from what I've heard, that is actually the reason that rule is in place. That you have adequate time to provide care and supervision for children. That's a big one as well, because that's the main reason I'm on third shift, is so that I can help assist with appointments, tasks, especially getting major groceries. I don't know if you've been to Costco in the evening or really any time. Costco's just kind of a zoo at all times. So, but if you've ever been there in the evening, it gets super packed, and trying to take children in there, it's pretty hard if you're trying to go during non-work hours. So me being on third kind of allows me to sneak in there when it's not quite as busy. You are also required to be of such physical, mental, and emotional health that you can provide care for children. So don't take this as if you have a disability you can't care for children. That would never fly. I have multiple disabilities through the VA, but I still am able to provide care for these children. This just means that you essentially can care for yourself along with another little human that's going to depend on you and be in need of you being a solid individual. So that one's kind of vague, but I think that's also to protect the children. You are required to express a willingness and demonstrate the ability to work with the foster child's family and future family. This is for reunification, that or maybe adoption. That just ensures that you're going to work with visits, stuff like that, to ensure that you work in the best interest of the child. You are responsible for your character and to be suitable and able to meet the needs of children and provide for their care, supervision, protection. That's stuff like basic hygiene, that you're working to, in the best interest of the other rules, that you're working to make sure that they're taken care of and you're not putting them in harm's way with your negligence. And one of the final ones, demonstrate a willingness to and ability to comply with the licensing rules for foster homes. There's a huge rule book. There's pages upon pages of rules and just different things that have been put in place. So you'll get trained over that if you end up becoming a foster parent or apply to it. Now, the state of Michigan on their website says there are 5 steps, but that kind of makes it sound a lot easier than it is and not as time consuming. I think when we became foster parents, it took us 8+ months between signing that first application and filling it out to getting licensed. If you're watching the video of this, I will put a few websites up where you can find information that I'm going to go over. There is information on Michigan.gov's website for MDHHS. There is also mifostercare.michigan.gov, and there is also a website called Foster US Kids. So these all have a lot of different information on them. You can get different documents and other information, and please check these websites as stuff constantly changes, honestly. So the 5 steps of becoming a foster parent. The first one and foremost is finding a navigator. This is going to be either contacting 1-855-642-4543. That's essentially 1-855-MISH-KIDS. This will get you in contact with an experienced navigator who helps foster parents along with answering questions. They can get you in contact with individuals, different agencies, answer questions like that. These navigators can help you even once you are licensed. So if you can't ever find that number, you can Google foster care navigators for Michigan and it'll get you in contact with them. They are a great resource to use. We actually chose our agency based off from Cassie's best friend who was a foster care worker at the time. There is also a agency checklist on the state's website. This allows you to take notes on different things. It'll walk you through the process. I looked it over. We didn't actually use that. It doesn't have a lot of space for all the information you want to take down, but it gets you things such as referrals, list of agencies, meeting with workers to talk to them if you want to do that, kind of jotting down your timeline, requirements, training schedules. It definitely is a very useful tool, especially for keeping track of where you are in the process. And the second step is actually attending an orientation. This is an comprehensive orientation by a trained individual on what you'll be expected to do as a foster parent. These agency representatives help you with all your questions that you may have during this orientation. Ours was short. I think it was maybe an hour, but we were one of 2 families that were involved, and the other family was only interested in infants. So I'm thinking that they were trying to bypass the fees and everything that are associated with adoption by going through foster care. And the biggest reason this is an issue, it's nothing against their morals or anything, but the likeliness of you getting to keep every infant that you come in, you care for during your time with a foster family is pretty slim, because you have to go through, generally from my experience, reunification is always the first goal unless something drastic happens. I mean, even with our foster kids, the fathers were their first set for reunifications, and then things kind of change from there. And we are honestly down farther on the totem pole, unfortunately, for being their permanency goals. So be prepared for heartbreak, especially if you're trying to get an infant and you don't want to go through the fees of adoption. Just know that even if a child comes into your care, there is no guarantee that that child is going to stay with you. They do go up on MARE, which is the adoption website for kids in foster care throughout the state of Michigan, and could potentially, if for whatever reason, they might end up with somebody else, especially when it comes to biological family. But if you do end up doing adoption through foster care, know it is a wonderful thing. You get to know the kids, and the only fee associated with adoption through foster care is you pay to have the birth certificate changed. So it's, I think last we looked, like $160 or something like that. So no, it does have a lower associated cost. It's just the emotional toll and everything else associated with it does end up compensating for that lowered cost, honestly. And step 3 is going to be complete the application. The application is a big one. After this orientation, you'll actually get the application packet. You'll end up scheduling fingerprinting with your selected agency. You will complete this foster home licensing application. You'll submit the application and fingerprinting clearance form to your licensing worker. They will also work on getting information from your references. I can tell you right now, pick the best references and make sure you stay on top of them. One of my references was one of my best friends, who's normally like the most put together person I've ever known, but he was going through some chaos during the time, and also I guess the packet got lost in the mail. But make sure they don't dilly-dally, because this is going to delay your application, because even if just one of your references it doesn't have their stuff through, you wait until everything's through to be able to actually get licensed. You also complete medical records for your entire family. This includes physicals and tuberculosis tests. This is to ensure that kids coming in are coming into somewhere where everybody in the family has got A, B, or C illness that they're not taking care of. They want to make sure they're coming into a healthy home. This is especially important because we've had kids come in with compromised immune systems just because they might not have been vaccinated in the past. They might have just a lower immune system due to nutrient deficiencies and stuff like that. So they want to make sure that they're coming into somewhere where they'll be happy and healthy. So that is a big one, is the medical records. With my friend, we also had to deal with him not being able to get that done in time when he moved back in with us. So just make sure that you're staying on top of everything like that. And finally, you'll complete other requested paperwork with your licensing worker. This includes, from things I can remember, there was a budget form. You'll have to get your pet's licenses, vaccine records. There are a bunch of different paperwork items that you'll have to go through, and it takes a lot. You have to get car insurance, car registration, homeowner's insurance, your different, I think there was my mortgage paperwork I had to get. It's just a whole bunch of other stuff. W-2s, I had to supply the paperwork for my VA disability. It's a lot of paperwork. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. You will be going through a lot of stuff. That is why it took us, over 8 months to get licensed originally. And step 4 will actually be attending free training. This is a pretty lengthy training class. This training offers you valuable information about becoming a foster parent, what you will be required to do. This training is about 20 to 25 hours of content. From what I can remember, ours was like an 8 multi-hour session. They'd go over a few different chapters in each one. So we'd do I think it was 3 to 4 hours. I was doing it while I was at work at the time. It was once a week, virtually. I know that they had, I think, a few in-person sessions. It was a little bit less because it was post 2020 and all that chaos. So it was essentially a bunch of people being trained on the different things, and you did have the chance to answer questions. There was some homework to be done, stuff like that. I know when I was looking on the state's website, I don't remember this acronym, but they used GROW, which stands for Grow Culturally Responsive Relationships, Recognize Children's Developmental Needs and the Impact of Trauma, Obtain Information and Resources, and Work in Partnership with Families to Support Healthy Relationships. And those are all super important things. I know I've been in therapy a big portion of our time fostering. I found that extremely helpful. It's helped me to bounce ideas off my therapist and kind of figure out what I think I should do for different things when I've overreacted or not been the best person I should be, especially with understanding a teenage girl's emotions. It's helped me make strides, honestly, in becoming a better foster parent and understanding that how I see a situation is not how a teenage girl is going to see the same situation. It's not even how I would have seen the same situation at that age. When I was 17. Me and my 17-year-old self would have butted heads all the time, especially because I haven't raised kids. I've helped with my siblings and stuff like that and babysitting, but I haven't been the sole person raising a child as to where I am with the kids in my home right now. And I mean, it's helped me grow, and which is the acronym for that. I just thought about that. I wasn't trying to do that either, but it's helped me just kind of come to terms with those different things and understand stuff that I honestly never would have before. And the step 5, the final step, is participate in a home evaluation. Become welcoming. Good gravy. I apologize. Before welcoming a foster child into your home, you must pass the on-site evaluation for performing the licensing agent. Just know I am trying to go off a script to some degree. I put down the main points, but I do like going through some of this, especially because it did come straight from the state's website. So I want to make sure I give you the best information, the most accurate for the main points, and then kind of go off everything else I have off from there. Which is just essentially means that the agency is going to come in, look at your home, check for different things. The home study information is going to contain marital and family status and history, educational history. A lot of this will also be on the application, employment and financial history, physical, mental, emotional health of each family member, any history of substance abuse, parenting skills and methods of discipline. You are not allowed to use corporal punishment against your foster children. When we got licensed, the licensing worker said that if we had biological children, we could do corporal punishment, which would be absolutely bonkers to me to use corporal punishment against your own kid and not foster kids. I see that raising so many more issues than it actually helps. But I've never been one for corporal punishment anyways. When my little brother was younger, I yelled at him and then he cried and I never yelled at him again because it just kind of broke my heart. I don't even smack my dogs, so I definitely wouldn't be harming any child. You will also have like adjustment and special needs of the applicant's own children. They'll see how you work through those issues and ensure treatment of your own kids who may have higher needs. They'll go over experiences with your own parents and any history of out-of-state care. I know there was a CPS report when I was younger, and when she came into our home, she goes, "There was a CPS report involving you," and my stomach dropped because I thought maybe I had been reported for something, and then it was something that happened between my parents. So they do find stuff that is, I don't even remember that. I had no memory of it, but she had it in the paper, and I had to go through and explain everything that I knew of that happened, which wasn't a whole lot. So you also will go over the reason for applying to be a foster family. Ours was mostly that my friend's sister is a struggling addict, and we wanted to make sure that in case her kids go into care, that there was somebody that was willing and able to take them, to be able to provide them with a safe home, just because they were spending a lot of time with us at the time, and we wanted to be sure that we were there just in case the unthinkable happens. We never would want that to happen, but in the world we live in, unfortunately, you don't know when something's going to show up where something's laced and the unthinkable happens. You may also go over things such as previous experience in providing foster care, which we didn't have any, and your willingness and ability to parent cross-racially and cross-culturally, which, for us is never an issue. We've had kids of multiple different backgrounds. We always try to support them the best we can. We had one who was Hispanic, and we made sure we all constantly went to the Mercado down the road and would have her cook meals and kind of learn those meals. We had another one, she was from Afghanistan, I believe, and we'd actually watch. She was super into the Indian soap operas, so we'd watch those with her and talk to her about her culture. That's one we've always supported. I was in the Army for 4 years with people from all backs of life, so I saw a ton of different stuff that just fascinated me, and I just love learning about different cultures, honestly. And they'll go over your capacity and disposition to care for foster children, to give them guidance, love, and affection, not treat them differently. I've heard a lot of horror stories about that, especially when I've been Googling stuff for this podcast, just seeing stories from foster kids about, being treated differently than biological kids, being used for the paycheck, which is absolutely disheartening and sad to even think about, because you're bringing that child into your home and they've already been through so much. I know I haven't done a great job at all times with every reaction to some of the stuff with our foster kids, but I've tried, and I'm constantly changing. And you'll also be asked about working with foster children's families to seek that goal of reunification, if that's on the table, before it goes to other steps such as independent living, adoption, or guardianship. They'll look into your social support system and alternate care providers. Ours is that friend of Cassie's who worked with the foster care system. She's provided some respite for us. We also have her parents as alternate care providers, so that in case we've gone on vacation a few times and needed to have somebody to watch the kids, and this has been a huge opportunity to where we can show that we do have that in case something happens. And they do go over previous adoption evaluations and placements, which we didn't have any. Another thing they actually go over is previous criminal convictions and any substantiated child abuse or neglect reports. We didn't have anything against us other than my DUI from 2017, which I explained that it was just an extremely hard time in my life, and that it's one of my biggest regrets, and that sadly there's nothing I can do about it. There's also the 3 current references you have to have. We did get one from my best friend, one from Cassie's friend who was the foster care worker, and one from our other friend who was in the foster care system. She actually provided a reference for us as well, which they all helped a ton. You will have to get that medical statement for each family in the household, which includes that physical. And that's to ensure that you have no medical condition that would affect the care of a foster child, like I said before, such as illnesses that are currently in the household that are maybe extreme illnesses that might affect your ability to care later on, which kind of goes with the safety and maintenance of your home that they'll go over. This is to ensure that your home is safe for the child. We've had to have a lot of work done. Nothing from neglect wise. My house is from the 1970s, I think, or 1950s. So it's just one of those things where it's aging, where like the plumbing had to be done because the sewage started to leak. So it's just making sure that you're going to take care of your house and then it's up to standards and you're not bringing children into a home that is subpar for like anybody to live in. Then you'll also have to go over an assessment of the neighborhood. During the application, I forgot to say this, you will actually have to go over where you can find different resources such as schools, community resources, daycare, stuff like that. You just essentially go through Google and then find those different things to ensure that if you get like the infant that we have, that he has a place where we can get him daycare and make sure he's taken care of, and that we can find schools for the different age groups that we may get. So it's essentially just to prep you, and I think it was more to teach us how to find those different resources than to actually have them on file, because those are always changing for like a lot of the things. I guess not all of them, schools and like the public library, and it had us find different things we could do with the kids. I guess not all of it would change, but I mean, daycares and stuff change. But anyways, not to stick on one topic too much. And then finally, they go over the training needs of the family, such as the different things you'll need to be trained on if you have, say, a child that has higher needs than others, or if you need training in certain areas, they will give you ways to provide that. So that's the major things for the home study. And as you can see, there is a lot of information to go over. They interview the family and roommates in the house. They interact with the pets. They look through the rooms to make sure there are beds, dressers, other items that are needed, that the living areas are big enough, and that you aren't trying to use closets as living spaces, which is absolutely bonkers to me that has to be put in this, that foster parents in the past have tried to use closets as living spaces, which shows that they were trying to force these kids into closets just to fit more kids in there. So if you're listening and you are a foster kid, make sure you report that kind of garbage to your caseworker. Just know you'll never get in trouble for reporting a foster parent who's legitimately abusing you. That will never happen. At worst, you will be moved to a new foster home that you might bounce around for a little bit, but you will be moved to another foster home that will at least provide better support, and you will probably protect another child from going to that foster home. So don't try to get out of it by just like lying or acting up. Just make sure you tell the truth and know that you will never get in trouble for that stuff. And then it also looks at like having egresses, like making sure the windows aren't like nailed shut or like painted shut, honestly, not even out of malice, but making sure that the egresses are open and everything. We also had to make sure our knives were put up and in lock boxes so that the kids couldn't get a hold of them. We ended up getting metal chemical cabinets so that we could lock up our chemicals as well, just because we had one foster kid who was looking up different chemicals that she could drink for, well, obvious reasons. So we ended up getting metal cabinets so that we could put those chemicals up and ensure they were locked at all times. And that is just some of the reasons and some of the things you go over for your licensing. It is a long process. It is a lot of work. If you're doing it just to make money, know that unless you are an absolute horrible human being, you won't, and nor should you. Kids require so much more than I ever would have imagined. And plus, you want to do stuff with them. If you're a good person, you'll want to make sure that they have, a fulfilling life. I mean, besides us going camping, we've taken kids to concerts. We've gone out to museums, fairs, everything. Like, we do constant stuff with them just so, they get to experience that stuff that they might not have ever experienced in their life. It's super rewarding to see them enjoy that kind of stuff. So, as always, I just want to thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, share. If you have stories or resources that I can put out there, please email fosterdaddirective@gmail.com. You can also provide any feedback, ideas, stuff like that. I'm always looking for constructive criticism to see how I can increase the quality of this podcast. I definitely want to make sure that I do that. So thank you all so much. Hopefully all remains quiet on the foster front. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.